As I said, I'm jumping in here for John. He has a couple of technical problems on his machine that happens at times, keeps happening. I almost said, because the best repair tool for the computer is a sledgehammer, but then we may have a problem otherwise. Anyway, call me during the broadcast. Afterwards, it's 770-924-0223. Email is karl@welz.net. This may or may not come, depending how good I am with something I haven't done before. May come onto the past broadcasts. And the specialist in the field is John MacDonald, 770-783-0563. You can reach him now. And you can also reach him afterwards, throughout the weekend. Just may need to try a couple of times or leave a message if he doesn't answer. After all, it's Memorial Day weekend. And maybe what I'm broadcasting here fits into it. It's something, some people may feel lonely and so on. As I said, I haven't done it before. John is a few notches ahead of me in dealing with the situation of partnership, getting a new partner, repairing an old relationship, and so on. Getting back with somebody. Sometimes you need to really find out whether it's good at all. I'm talking about a few things like this. Sometimes people are a bit too obsessed. And when beginning to use these combinations of G generators with manifestation programs, or the G generators, radionics machines by themselves, in the beginning, most of the things, especially lighter ones, easier ones, work almost immediately. It's the outlook to it and so on that works, and then all of a sudden it goes a little bit down from that striking success. And some people, especially those who want to correct a love situation, they may have problems right from the beginning. And I'm bringing examples at times. Well, I know one person who bought a machine, and he was 75 years old, and he says, well, I don't know, it doesn't work. I put my picture and that picture of that 25-year-old girl onto the machine, and it just doesn't work. Actually, the woman may have needed him for immigration purposes, actually, and liked him. She was just scared of his obsession, and if there is an age difference, plus, he may have needed, if he had a $5 million house in Beverly Hills, it may have been something in his favor. The red sports car alone doesn't do it anymore. And there are things, and of course, with that difference, people need to be aware that the generation difference is a factor, and many people, even though they like to marry their father, let's put it in a Freudian term, at the same time, sometimes they feel a need to get with somebody their generation, and being absolutely obsessed, possessive, and whatever just doesn't help. As I said, very often those are very complex situations. Complex, a Freudian slip again. I'm going into this later. And I'm going here into the manual, which hopefully some people read, and I'm talking more about it. Misjudgment of availability. Typical situation here is, I mentioned the one and only big win, but let's look, somebody being obsessed with a specific famous person. I recall a local lawyer who admitted to me, and knew she wouldn't get him, that she was obsessed with Jackson, and it. And of course, he was a lot smaller, and she was about not exactly twice his size, but and she wasn't a singer either. And as Michael, and she also saying that even though she was tall, she would have needed to have double her heights to have a perfectly proportioned figure that may have matched to it. So the availability was simply not there. And then again, there can be that stroke of luck, and a lot of people hope continuously about it. There's too many. Misjudgment of the situation, same situation, you know. Of course, if the person could get become the lawyer of the person, move to the place and so on, slim chance still. Misjudgment of situation is very often. I had a friend who was a Muslim, and he was deeply in love with a Hindu girl, and that, of course, according to their faith, works. However, the parents of the girls already lost one of the girls lost, as they saw it, to a Muslim who, and they didn't want it again, so they heavily interfered, you know, heavily interfered with it, and it didn't work out. I did something for the person, and it was one of my pretty neat failures of love spells which I have done. It's not the only one, you know. It's professional once told me that's the most difficult thing to work for when dealing with other people. Of course, then again, the person who comes to a professional psychic or so, they are hurting, and if they get a rip-off psychic, they give them a little glimmer of hope, and then they just steal everything they have, and if they don't have money, well, you have jewelry and so on, you know, if it's a woman. So that be careful about this too. Misjudgment of personal capability. I was thinking about the 75-year-old person. You know, of course the relation still could come, but he may have needed to get one of the potency boosters we are offering with a full money-back guarantee, in fact, if it really doesn't work. And I was thinking of people his age where even that boost may not be able to bring the testosterone back, especially if they how do you say, did some sinning against their personal environment. Misjudgment of personal attitudes is number 4, is in the manual. What is it with love situations? It's obsession. That's personal interference. That I don't know of any animal, which humans included, which wants a weak partner. And if a person is obsessed, I was about to say, if you are obsessed, you know, not everybody is. Hell, I went through that crap myself, excuse me, through that fecal matter myself. Long ago, I outgrew it. Thank the good Lord with his beard, I outgrew it. You know, it's really, it took something, you know, but I did have obsessions at times, especially when a relationship breaks up, and it's supposed to break up because the typical lifespan of a human relationship is genetic. It's 3 to 5 years. Reich realized it. He didn't say it's genetic. I realized it's genetic. There's a way of bypassing it. I successfully did that on myself, and I push it on people, getting into that later. And has not so much to do with spell work. So if somebody radiates weakness out, I mean, it's more than just the speech, but people pick it up on the speech too, that the person is obsessed, weak, incapable. Weak partners are simply undesirable. Ever seen in a wolf pack the leading female going for the runt of the pack. This would be a totally new one. And humans are pretty similar to wolf packs, or chimps, whatever. The only exception may be bonobos. But otherwise, it just doesn't go. Or the male going for the lowest grade female. The obsession doesn't help there either. And it doesn't mean they cast out the runt or so. I have just recently I've seen a thing that the wolf pack mourned for about 1 week because they lost the runt of the pack, got killed by some bear or whatever. I don't recall that. So that's a personal attitude towards it. Obsession, dominance, forcing people into doing it. Very often I get emails, I want to force this or that person I want to force that person to love me, love only me, etc. That's projecting such an insecurity or a weakness that it's simply number one undesirable, and number two very bad for a person who goes with an obsessed person. It's generally a bad choice. Very interesting situation I did in terms of obsession, and I keep repeating that because it's one of the most common situations where manifestation operations for love spells, where they fail. I knew a lady who was obsessed with a guy who was sort of, what do you call it, who was an entertainer, let me say that. I don't want to go too much into detail here. And they got together, they had sex, and that made her even more obsessed, and she absolutely wanted him moved to the city where the entertainer lived. Oh, crap. Let me hold that for a second. May I help you? Ich mache gerade Broadcast. Ich kann überhaupt nicht, ja. Das ist vielleicht heute Abend irgendwann. Bis dann. Ciao. Okay, had to call it off. Sometimes I'm talking in 5 languages in one day. Not just that. My English is better than the German anyway, meanwhile. After all, I have been here since 1974. So, is that typical, I was talking about obsession here, and that weakness, and she went, was really obsessed with the person, and he didn't want her. Once he had her and it was an obsessed partner, he went for somebody else that he couldn't get as easily. So the person moved there, and he literally, at times they got together and he absolutely abused her. And again, I don't need to go into details. You may see some stuff in your porn magazine where people are showing off, so just enough, but it just abused. And then at some point she decided, oh gosh, quit that bullshit. Excuse me, fecal matter coming from the rear end of a male specimen of the bovine species, so quit that BS. And she realized that she wouldn't get him, gave up completely, changed attitude, found somebody almost instantly. Apparently, being obsessed, she put up some strength in herself, especially getting rid of the obsession. She built up that strength. So she didn't project weakness anymore. Got involved with a person, and guess what? All of a sudden, this person with whom she was obsessed to begin with started stalking her. He got obsessed, couldn't have her anymore. And it's an excess, it's a further development of the famous hard to get game, and it was, the problem came then, so because all of a sudden he didn't have her, and all that love spell work done for her, probably from a bunch of people, and she, I suspect, spent a mint on it. All that stuff came into play also. And then he noticed the strength of her, and he was obsessed with her to the last. If she had given in, then he would have dumped her again. She didn't. She actually married that other person, and they apparently lived happily ever after, at least 3 to 5 years. I'm going back to the 3 to 5 years thing. It's very important for relationships to know about it. It is genetic, regardless what religious setups which actually bust the sexuality anyway, rigidify sexuality and so on, or societal ideological setups. It's very similar to religion here. And I made that even Kama Sutra. I mean, it looks like being really projecting sexual freedom. In fact, it's as rigid as it can be. So it doesn't have that flow in it which a good relation has. It's total rigidity, how it's supposed to be, and so on. If you look at it from this point of view, I propose that you read Wilhelm Reich's books. So, regardless what's said, that's cultural, that's societal. The average lifespan is 3 to 5 years, and that was a genetic situation which was important, considering very thin population. There are tribes that where a new partner is sought for, which spread out some way. They survived, and other ones didn't survive as well, just not as well, just a degree less because of inbreeding. And so it developed for a long time. Then, of course, sexual repression based on religion, ideology, whatever you call it, came in, and it seems to be Reich finally, he bitched about it all the time, I bitch about it too, but he finally realized that it is likely something which furthers civilization, and civilization as such furthers the quality of human beings. So, and that's very likely why the 3 to 5 did not adjust to large population groups, where actually a one-on-one situation may have been better, and it was imposed on people. But restricting them sexually also made sure that they will be happy followers. Freedom, a castrated steer is more docile than a bull. Simple as that. And it's used massively. And I formulated actually a law applicable to history, that the religion which best reflects the existing mechanisms of socio-economic sexual repression will carry victory as a mainstream religion over all the other ones. The other ones is then for the weirdos who are following some different paths. And of course, the more freedom in a society, the more small groups you have. America is a typical example of this, And it was defined like this by the founding fathers, who had at least some common sense to put that freedom of religion into it. Because if they had continued the way Europe did it, cuius regio eius et religio, whose empire his religion should be, there would be a probably a whole bunch of little statelets which are dominated by some exterior forces instead of a big country which has more freedom, in my opinion, than any country on this planet. So, let's go back to this thing. It's very important for any relationship, even when you begin, you have to be aware of it, that I realized that the 3 to 5 years is genetic. Reich did not write about it, he may have realized it, or I didn't read it. And I was figuring out what was, now I'm talking about how to keep a relationship going, not how to get a new one. What is the mechanism that makes this 3 to 5 happen? And I recalled my mother, I can't touch him anymore. And I recalled a few things that go back to my own relations that I had. I can't touch him anymore. And I realized it was something, that dog with the bell and the food and the saliva measured, the Pavlovian conditional reflex. So, and it came like a lightning into my brain. I realized it. Of course, whenever the situation is, when you hug each other, in good situations and in bad ones, especially after a bad, discord is always there, a little fallout or so, that's normal. But if people then hug to get together, the discord is still connected. And it builds up more and more and more. And when I got with my present wife, I made it almost a religious law not to touch each other when the situation is bad. Just let the other person know I'm here for her or she's here for me. But no hugging, no touching, till we feel really good. And guess what? After 26 years, touching each other still feels like the first few weeks of our relationship. You get the idea? That's how to keep on going, unless the 3 to 5 years are already over. Also, when people came to me for readings in the past, and typical, well, it's not too good with my wife, not too good with my husband, whatever, not too good with my partner. And I said, well, how long have you been together? Well, 12 years. Well, I said, that's about 7 to 9 years too many. How do you know that? Well, how do you know you have eyes in your head? No. It's just, it's part of human nature. So, of course, you may have some people born without even eyeballs. I have never heard of it, but it's a possibility with mutation. Anyway, that's how do you know that? So far, situation. Keeping, that's about keeping a relationship now. And a very important one to check, to figure out. And so what's the next thing about how to get a new relationship going? That would be set something up, and at first, considering what I have said, going into the manual and reading what I the stuff that I mentioned. First, check for availability. I talk about the Michael Jackson thing. Can the person be gotten? Make sure that it's doable. I'm talking about an enormous blockage coming from the parents, from the Hindu parents of the girl that the Muslim wanted. Could have been bypassed, but you need to write it down piece by piece, step by step. Could have been work done if, instead of just saying the person will join with me, we will happily marry and so on, if there is a love spell put onto the parents. Now again, an obsessed person radiating weakness, nobody wants their daughter with a weak partner. Get that. So check out whether it's doable. If it's a one-night stand, works usually easily, provided that the person who is approached like this is available for such a thing. There are people who have very strong mechanisms built up against it, where likely even the best magic will not work, especially when something doesn't work. The person who practices becomes more and more obsessed since it doesn't work, you know. Why is that? That's of course also human nature. I got to have that person. You know, the obsession is then a weakness that comes through. So, check out if it's doable. Number 2, check out if the result is acceptable. On a one-night stand, it could be that the person whom you so happily got for a couple of nights, or not just one, that if that person becomes an obsessive person, and at the same time the person doing that little love spell for a one-night stand is married, it can be a big problem afterwards. So, and then you have to do spell work again, probably too late, and then more, and then probably the wife or husband leaves. You get double obsessed. It's both get obsessed, except in different directions, even worse. You know? And that happens. It's a very complicated situation here. Analyze the situation and the potential for success it offers. How much is needed? You know? Of course, you can make the other person, you can also do that, perceive you as offering more security than you do. You can block off your obsession so the person won't pick it up. But those are additional things, and eventually it's the danger there with doing too many things at the same time is that it's somewhere it doesn't quite match up. You know, there are different trends and so on, and I don't know of any human being who doesn't perceive beyond the 5 senses. And that's that famous gut feeling that comes, oh, I don't want to deal with that girl, I don't want to deal with that guy, you know, comes through them. And it's a very clear language for the target of your operation. Determine personal capability, readiness for the task. If it's missing, as I said, generate them. A good thing in the beginning is to literally work on yourself analyze the whole situation, the pros and cons of the situation, whether you want it at all, or whether it's just a conscious thing. Very often a biological reality is unknown, non-conscious, subconscious stuff, of which what we are thinking, what we think our logic is just the tip of the iceberg. I say what we think our logical conclusions are. It's just the tip of the iceberg. And there's a reality behind that can spread to many people. Analyze personal attitudes. That's very important. And set up your equipment before even doing anything towards a partner. If you are lonely, good example was with me. I had a good relationship, and then I was basically, it fell apart, not in hostility, it was something else, you know, and we just couldn't get together anymore. Both of us knew it, and that was fine. However, I was long ago. I was dried up for 2 years, literally dried up. I had very little, a few very quick ones in between. And I did an evocation there of a love entity. And even so, I was in the middle of the protective circle. I felt that hand touching me. Of course, it could have been imagination. With evocation, it's always a artificial schizophrenic state. And whatever, quote, entity you call or energy, it's part of yourself. And of course, it's also a collective being, collective egregore, as it's called, when many people believe in the same type entity. Don't worry, you get there. And then I got the idea, you know, I was pretty much a dork. I got the idea, I had a good friend who was a real good womanizer. And I was lucky one time, we went together to visit one lady. Of course he got it on with her, and I slept in the side room. But it was one of the best experiences for me, because I watched him very clearly, and I became, I copied the guy, you know, and boy did that ever work. Just copied him, you know. That's all. Did that ever work? And I never had a dry spell again. So that too, it was a result of an operation where I simply asked for help. I didn't go, and it was not for a specific partner, a partner, you know. I evoked, and you can do that with equipment, of course, a lot easier than with an evocation, and much more powerfully, and in fact less dangerous, because that's an evocation. Even so, you call with a collective egregore, it's also part of artificial schizophrenia, and a person not used to it can do serious damage, can get crazy basically, unless it's learned properly. While with the machine it's so easy. It's outside. Be aware of subconscious blockages, of course. That goes back to what I went through here, you know. And subconscious interferences. And reassign them. Reassign yourself. Reassign the blockages. They protect you. But reassign them to a place where you really need the protection. Not just because you had one bad experience or two that it blocks now from everyone. Or you couldn't get somebody, you know, and you're blocked lifelong to get anybody. Open the block, open up. Become outgoing. That's another thing, getting outgoing. Work on yourself again. An outgoing person projects more power than a totally introverted person. I have a good deal of introversivity. Of course, people don't believe me that, because I love to speak in public. Meanwhile, it took me something. It took me, in part, magic, and that led me, or magic, whatever you call it, manifestation techniques, and that led me to NLP. And I studied that way back when it was almost at the beginning, and developed it further myself. And before I couldn't talk in front of people, and that was the problem too when I got with a potential partner. It's like going one step ahead and then going 2 steps back at the same time. You don't get anybody this way. Unless somebody who looks for a quick week or so, who is totally frustrated, and then you are dumped in within a week or two. Somebody just needs a quick one and gets anybody. Even genuinely weak partners don't want another weak partner. They look for the strong one. Be aware of it. Build it up. Project strengths. Project wealth. Project that you can produce security. Whether that is getting a partner back. I haven't talked about this yet. I never wanted one back, so I'm not a specialist here at all. I have worked for people getting them back. And my first suggestion is a 3 to 5 year thing. Either you decide to overcome a massive set of obstacles because you are just obsessed with that person, where it ran its course, and want to do some massive changes within yourself, within that person, or just look for somebody else and be happy. Quicker and less restrictive. And just don't touch each other when things are bad. That's I'm preaching that to everybody, that I'm talking about situations like this. So, create, when you work on a person that they come towards you, create a positive climatic background, trend environment. I'm going back to the 75-year-old. I put my picture and the picture of the 25-year-old girl, and I say, I'm pretty sure he doesn't listen to me. What an idiot, If putting both, it goes mostly to him, and he gets even more obsessed. You work only on one person, and you work on the person, not that it's love between the two, but the attraction goes towards you. And then you put a positive climatic background there. In the trend environment, say if you have the 5-position program of the manifestation program, trend environment, you put that whenever the person is in a happy environment that makes him feel great, makes her feel great, happy and so on, that they automatically think of you. Guess what that does on the subconscious level? It doesn't take a long time. Of course, you need also a very good climatic background. I block that. No, it's already stopped. I'm taking calls afterwards, and I guess a few will come, and I'll do them all in private. So, it's get that right climatic background. That's very important. And do it to yourself too. Oh, I have just... The person doesn't know that I'm doing a broadcast. I'm just disconnecting the phone for the time being. And I hope he or she hears me and calls me about in an hour or so. Anyway, I'm going to apologize then. So this can work very well on you as well, but don't make yourself more obsessed this way. A good thing to do is, before you do anything, figure out whether it's good for you to deal with that person at all. And again, you can use the equipment for this, the setting, that you get an idea, that you know how to analyze the situation. So, first, talking about a ladder of success, you are checking out that you analyze the situation. Is it good? Is it not good? Where are the problems? Where there are the pros, the cons? Number two, so whether you accept it or not. Obsession is usually better keep it out. Number two, work on getting ideas what approach is best for this specific situation, provided it's doable, or it's relatively easy to do. Of course, you can work about for a year on something and get a half rear and a half-ass solution, not what you want, and then it gets you into bad luck. And then, with the success strategy, you set up an operation towards the goal that you want. And with this operation, excuse me for a second, it's bothering here. And then you run the operation and you wait maybe you run it for about half an hour to 2 hours. It doesn't matter what type of equipment you have. With a junior, I would work a bit longer. And then you wait a couple of days. And you need to get at least some inroads. If not, work it over again. Also work on yourself that you do the right things once a contact is established. Definitely that obsession, if you have it, does not get through, is not perceived. Or, easier said than done, get rid of it. Eventually you can change attitude and outlook. That's one of the most important things. And you almost, I have done it before I got happy relationships. After the 2 years dry time. So, change the whole outlook and it works. And so, if you have at least inroads after the 2 days, you continue this way. You adapt a little bit, but you continue. Slight adaptation, is of course needed anytime. If there is nothing that shows, check it out again. Go back to square one to analyze things. Maybe you overlooked some interferences. I'm expecting here, when I say a couple of days, 2 or 3 days at most, regardless what you do, there need to be at least some inroads. Otherwise, consider it failed. And by all means, if you have gone to some rip-off psychics, typically famous lines that they say, I see some darkness around you, I need to clear it, I like clear people for free. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Of course, I only take about one person maybe every 2 weeks, not more. Then I say, I'm sorry, I don't do it. I do it for free. Then it's very easy. It's done very easily. I describe it in the Magic of the Future course in the 6th lesson. You can do it yourself. The clearing, if there is really something on it. Another one, of course, is that you have been together in past lives, which is probably true. I wouldn't be surprised, It may be in situations where it may be better for both not to get together again. This happens too. And of course then, if they know the person is into alternative religion, Asiatic maybe. Yeah, some 50 generation back ancestor is blocking you. Well, 50 generation back, those ancestors have a few million people they could block. It's quite a bit of work. Selecting you out for that, you know. Take it with a grain of salt. I usually laugh when I hear that. So far this. I'm open for questions now. I'm turning the phone back on now, and the person doesn't hear me anymore who called me, but I'm pretty well prepared for a call from this person too. If you are listening here, you just called me a bit too early. I didn't want to interrupt. So call me, and if it's something you mean I should say, I should tell people, then please call me immediately. And I keep the phone on now for about 2 minutes or 3, and then I keep the, as I said, I keep everything else private. This would just be for a quick one, you know, a question that you think everybody should know. And you have a great Memorial Day weekend. Tomorrow is another broadcast. It's either me or John. It's about astrodynamic manifestation. Very likely I'm doing it. So check it out. And I'm always, during broadcasts, I didn't make a break right now. Could have done it. But I'm always open for calls. Especially afterwards, then I can go. This had to be presented in a block. Now I'm open for calls, you know. And apparently, the 2 minutes are just about over. I'm getting my carrot juice. I happen to be an organic food freak.